Good evening, and welcome to another episode on Episcopalian identity. One guy's thoughts on what it means to be Episcopalian. Maybe I should preface with one priest's thoughts. Maybe that has a little bit more leverage to it, but not really. Maybe it shouldn't. There'll be plenty of people who will disagree with my thoughts on what it means to be Episcopalian, and that's great, because that's part of the joy of being Episcopalian, is we all don't have to agree on many things in order to be one. So it's pretty cool, actually. I've gotten this question a lot. This is going to be just a short episode. I've gotten this question actually a lot over the years, and it's come up again recently with some folks who are kind of just dipping their toes into the water, if you will, of the Episcopal tradition. But going back all the way even to the time when I was in another tradition, and I announced that we're going into the Episcopal Church, right? Well, that's a part of the Church of England, right? People would ask. Yeah, I knew where they're going with this. Doesn't the only reason it exists because Henry VIII wanted a divorce? Yes and no. There were long-standing issues with the Church of England and the Roman Catholic Church long before Henry VIII ever came along. One of it had to do with just the heavy amount of money that was going out of England to Rome. That was definitely a sore subject for a lot of people, especially a lot of monarchs, when they realized a lot of the wealth of their land wasn't going to them or to their government if they were being more generous and less greedy. It was actually going somewhere to another part of the world, to the church, to the Pope. And yeah, if you didn't like the particular Pope who was in power, that could be that could be not so fun. So there's things like that. And then tensions between certain monarchs and certain popes. And there was also all of this political stuff that was going on where if a pope would come out in favor of a king of a country and you weren't that king, and you weren't a part of that country, right, it could be a sore subject as well for you. So one of the issues, so yes, King Henry VIII was an interesting fellow. I'll say it that way. Yes, he did want to get a divorce from his wife, if you know all of the history. But it's not just as simple as that. It's not that he was asking for something that was unknown at the time or unavailable at the time. It was he wanted a divorce from his wife and requested that from the Pope, that the church would recognize that, because the Pope and the church had recognized other kings' divorces from their wives, such as the King of France, for example, and was refusing to recognize Henry's desire for a divorce. So it had actually more to do with the political tensions between England and other countries than it did with just the subject of divorce, right? Marriage and divorce, and the monarchy's right to make such decisions. So, yeah. So yes, Henry VIII wanted a divorce, but he wanted it because it was granted to other kings. And it's why not me, right? Why not me too, Pope? That was the sore spot for him. Yeah. So Episcopalian identity, I don't know. I don't know how that actually informs our Episcopalian identity. It's definitely a part of our history, and I find that there are a lot of folks who are informed. They watch the show The Tudors, for example, on the Netflix, and they know a little bit about the history, or they learned about it in high school or college, right? And people who decide to become Episcopalian are often faced with, didn't the whole tradition start off with one guy's desire for different wives and to break his fidelity to his spouse, right? It doesn't look too well on our tradition, but it was actually much deeper than that, and there's more things going on than that. Yeah, and the thought that our tradition too, many people, when they come across us, it feels quite Catholic to them, or as I'm gonna say Rowan Williams, Robin Williams. Big difference between the two. Both a part of the Anglican tradition, right? But Robin Williams talked about how Episcopalians are a Catholic light, right? But many people will feel like the Episcopal Church is very Catholic because of the robes, the ritual, the liturgy, all of that stuff. And we have maintained more of our kind of Catholic heritage than other traditions, like Baptist, for example, right? So the Reformation for the Church of England, for the Anglican tradition, and us Episcopalians, because we're all part of the same thing, it had more to do with politics than it did with theology or how worship was done, for example. And we still maintain a lot of our Catholicity. So it wasn't about the Catholic Church per se that we wanted to split off from. It was the politics of the day that caused the tension and the schism. So, yeah. So if you're entertaining the thought of becoming Episcopalian and somebody throws that at you, that the only reason the tradition exists is because Henry VIII wanted a divorce from his wonderful spouse. Motorcycle? I don't know. Sorry, that was very loud. I totally lost my train of thought. Maybe I should just end here. Anyways, it's a part of our Episcopalian heritage. How does it inform our identity? Yeah, it is what it is. So, peace.